I'm going to recap the horror mystery film, The Boat. The opening scene of the horror film shows a fisherman launching his little boat for a voyage off the coast of Malta. He finds himself in the open sea after cautiously making his way through a water tunnel. After some time at sea, the atmosphere of the sea suddenly shifts, making it difficult for him to see anything. The man makes a decision to head back to the coast, but not before something hits his boat and gives it a severe shaking. He falters and almost topples over, but he regains his balance just in time. The fisherman notices a bigger sailboat drifting aimlessly in the distance a little while later. Approaching, he sees the name of the boat, Aeolus. He cries out to someone on board many times, but nobody ever responds. The fisherman, intrigued, chooses to explore and ties his tiny boat to the larger boat with a rope before hopping on. Then he enters Aeolus and is shocked to see it vacant. But there are supplies of food and water on board the ship. The fisherman discovers a radio as well and tries to use it to get in touch with someone, but he is once more met with silence. The fisherman decides to go after spending some time investigating and heads to the deck. He had secured his tiny boat securely, but to his surprise, it had magically disappeared. Then, he reaches for his binoculars to search for his boat, but the fog is still thick and he is unable to see anything. The fog gradually lifts a little while later, but his fishing boat is nowhere to be seen. Then, in an attempt to maneuver the Aeolus closer to the coast, the guy tries to start the engine. Regretfully, he has no idea where the boat is going and the motor isn't working either. The fisherman then descends below deck, where he witnesses a restroom door abruptly shutting on its own. He opens the door once more, though, without giving it any thought. He then attempts to navigate his whereabouts using a map he finds. The guy then goes down below deck to get the tools he needs to fix the engine. He ultimately manages to repair the engine and maneuver the boat toward the coast after some effort. The man feels somewhat relieved by this and thinks his luck has finally turned around. He attempts to call for help on the radio, but gets no answer. When the irritated man tries to pee in the water, one of the sails strikes him and nearly sends him overboard. Luckily, he leaps back onto the deck and snags a railing in time. The man walks to the restroom and starts releasing himself since he still has to urinate. He is confused when the bathroom door suddenly closes by itself. He disregards it, supposing it's only the wind, but when he urinates, he finds himself trapped. The door looks to be locked from the outside, despite the man's strenuous attempts to unlock it. He tries to twist the lock with a coin he takes out of his pocket, but it doesn't work. Then, to his dismay, the guy opens the drawer beneath the mirror and finds bloodstains therein. He doesn't give it much thought, though, and goes for a pair of scissors instead. He attempts to use it to unlock the door, but can't. He hears a voice on the outside radio shortly after, alerting him of an incoming cargo ship and pleading with him to maneuver his boat to avoid colliding. When the fisherman opens the bathroom's little window, he sees a big ship approaching. He throws his garments and sticks out his hand in a desperate attempt to get their attention, but to no effect. Even though the window is too narrow for the man to fit through, he tries to poke his head out of it. A short while later, he tosses a rope into the water after noticing it dangling from the bathroom window. The sailboat ultimately slows down and avoids the crash when this becomes tangled with the propeller. Sadly, the rope catches around his throat and begins to choke him. The unfortunate man struggles desperately to get the rope loose, but he passes out on the restroom floor. He eventually wakes up and hears outside commotion. The man cries out for assistance, believing it to be a human, but nobody responds. Then he finds that the boat is flooding and that the rope has been cut. A well in the bathroom soon fills with water, and to his surprise, it's pure water. The man pleads with them to let him go because he thinks they are playing tricks on him. He makes it clear that he came here to check and had no intention of stealing anything. To his dismay, though, he gets no response from anybody else. He sips some new water because he's dehydrated, but it also runs out fast. The bathroom floods again in the evening, but this time it's seawater that he realizes when he attempts to drink. The man is so terrified by this that he gets a little jug and starts to pour out small amounts of water. The boat begins to tremble as an unexpected storm makes things worse. The man keeps getting attacked even when he attempts to grasp something to protect himself. With every second that goes by, the bathroom's water level rises as well. The man reacts quickly and tries to use a tiny blade to cut the rope that regulates the canvas. But he screams in agony when he inadvertently cuts his finger. He persists anyway, and in the end he succeeds in cutting the rope. He feels some comfort when the sailboat eventually stops moving once the canvas is dropped. Then, in an attempt to prevent drowning, he shuts the window and cuddles up against the sink to fall asleep. When the fisherman wakes up the following morning, he finds that the water has risen up to his neck and that he is quite chilly. He tries to kick the door again since he has nowhere else to go, but it remains in place. He begins to think that he is going to die here and loses all hope. However, a little while later, he hears a click, and when he gets closer, he discovers that the door is open. The man searches for the person he thinks is hurting him on purpose, but he doesn't find them. Then he goes to the deck, where he discovers several buoys. The man devises a strategy knowing that the leak will cause the boat to sink at any time. He creates a temporary watercraft by fastening the buoys to one of the shattered doors he discovered. The man quickly places his freshly made raft in the water and climbs aboard. He sails out a short distance, waiting for the A-list to capsize, but it never happens. He gets on the sailboat once more after realizing after some time that it won't sink. The fisherman then fixes the ship's leaky section to stop water from getting inside. In addition to fixing the hull, he constructs a basic water pump for emptying the cabin. He then makes use of the radio once more and leaves many messages asking for assistance, but he gets no answer. Not long after, the man is deep in concentration on his repairs when he sees a ship out in the distance. This gives him a glimmer of hope, and he hastily climbs into his improvised raft and sets out in the direction of the freighter. However, a few seconds later, when he turns around, he witnesses the A-list coming full speed toward him. The guy attempts to sail more quickly, but finds that he is stuck in the current. His improvised raft is destroyed as he is forced to plunge into the sea. The fisherman knows the sailboat is some kind of ghostly or haunted craft when it comes to a stop at this point. At that point, he makes the decision that he would much prefer float aimlessly in the water than return to the terrible boat. The man is still floating in the chilly water when the scene switches to nightfall. A little while later, something startles him and makes him frightened, but it turns out to be an amiable dolphin. A couple more dolphins appear and start frolicking about him, bringing him a fleeting smile. But at that very moment, the A-list returns, stunning and dispersing the dolphins. The fisherman is so disappointed by this that he yells at the dolphins to stay still. Then, he starts to become really chilly, and he has no choice but to go back aboard the spooky boat. Then he goes to bed, pulls a duvet over his head, and goes to sleep. When the fisherman wakes up the following morning, he is exhausted and feels quite weak. He looks out and sees that the boat is traveling quickly. He finds that the deck's main entrance is locked when he attempts to walk outdoors. Shortly after, the man decides to look into the unusual sound he's hearing coming from the restroom. He discovers a little hatch there that he was previously unaware of in the corner. When the man unlocks it, he finds that it leads to a little storage space. But the moment he steps inside, the little door slams shut, keeping him in again. To make matters worse, he hears footsteps in the distance. The man attempts, frantically, to open the window above him, but he can't. In the meantime, the boat is getting closer to a little beach village, which could be his final opportunity to get out. He asks the person who is not visible to stop the boat, since he can still hear footsteps. Additionally, he sobs and says he can't handle it any longer. Not long after, the fisherman starts to have trouble breathing since there isn't enough oxygen in such a small area. But the hatch door opens on its own just as he's ready to pass out. The man approaches the deck cautiously, thinking it's just another prank. He is shocked to learn that the yacht is now docked close to the town. Without more ado, he leaps off the ship and at last exhales with relief. After that, the fisherman finds himself alone in an unfamiliar town. He grabs an iron bar from somewhere nearby and begins to look for the person who has been causing him harm. Nevertheless, all he finds are dilapidated and deserted structures. Though a few ships are still berthed in the harbor, there are no signs of human activity in the area. He discovers Aeolus getting ready to go shortly after that when he hears some sounds in the distance. In an attempt to find out where it's going, he begins to approach it. But the boat disappears, leaving him dumbfounded. The man is shown in the last shot wandering aimlessly about the island, lost and not knowing where he is. He eventually makes it to the opposite side of the island, which is the same location he left at the start of the film, for unknown reasons. He's taken aback to discover his little sailboat, which vanished for no apparent reason a few days prior. Several individuals are spotted nearby, enjoying their holiday as if nothing strange had happened, while the camera pans out. A scene showing a tiny entrance to a water cave that opens up onto the huge ocean beyond serves as the film's closing shot. One final glimpse of the spooky sailboat appears in the distance. It appears to be searching for its next victim. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.